This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Before we begin, do you have a theory about this case or a story of your own? Leave a message on our socials. Our handles are all just Nightwatch Files without the space, or head over to nightwatchfiles.com to find them all in one place. Your insights might be featured in a future episode. I'm Harper Finley, and this is Nightwatch Files. Trigger warning. This episode contains graphic descriptions of self-harm. Listeners' discretion is strongly advised. On April 14th, 2009, Julissa Brisman posted on her Facebook wall from her hotel room in Boston. Almost forgot just how good staying in and watching a funny Dane Cook movie can be. She was energized, she was sober, and she was building a new life, helping others overcome addiction. That evening, she received a phone call from a man with a polite tone who wanted to book an appointment for 10 p.m. She described him to her friend as sounding friendly and cordial. 5 minutes before he was due to arrive, she told her friend Sarah she had to hang up because her client was coming. Sarah, protective like a mother hen, insisted Julissa send her a text when the appointment was over. The text never came. At 4 a.m., Sarah woke up and knew immediately that something was wrong. Meanwhile, another woman had already crossed paths with the same predator. Tricia Leffler had traveled to Boston for work and ended up zip-tied on a hotel room floor, staring down the barrel of a gun held by a tall, well-dressed man who spoke to her calmly and politely while he methodically robbed her. Both women had one thing in common. They had advertised their services on Craigslist. Within days, surveillance photos would emerge showing their attacker, a clean-cut, attractive man who looked more like a college student than a killer. He appeared casual and nonchalant in the images, calmly checking his BlackBerry as if he didn't have a care in the world. But this was no ordinary criminal. When police finally traced the digital breadcrumbs he had left behind, what they discovered would shock even seasoned investigators. The man hunting women through online classified ads was someone no one would suspect. In 1995, a modest email list would grow to become one of the most influential platforms on the internet. Created by Craig Newmark, a software engineer born in Morristown, New Jersey in 1952, what started as a simple way to share local San Francisco events with friends would eventually reshape entire industries and spark national debates about online responsibility. Newmark had spent nearly 2 decades honing his technical skills at IBM and other firms before moving to San Francisco in 1993 for a position at Charles Schwab. A self-described shy techno-nerd, his approach to community building was straightforward: give people a break. When his email list of local events began attracting more requests for inclusion, he registered Craigslist.org in 1996 and moved the concept online, allowing users to post and exchange classified ads primarily for free. The platform's growth was organic, rooted in service rather than profit. Its minimalist, utilitarian design stood in stark contrast to the flashier portals emerging during the dot-com boom. By the late 1990s, tens of thousands of users were generating countless postings, and the platform had expanded beyond San Francisco to numerous U.S. cities. In 2000, Newmark hired Jim Buckmaster to scale and upgrade the technology. Buckmaster introduced search capabilities, messaging, and flagging systems that allowed the site to handle larger volumes while reducing the need for hands-on moderation. Craigslist's impact on traditional media was devastating. By delivering classified ads online for free or at very low cost, it directly undercut newspapers' primary revenue stream. Many publications struggled to adapt as local commerce and job listings migrated to this new digital space. The platform's emphasis on simplicity, trust-based community policing, and broad category scope, from housing and jobs to community discussions and personal ads, cemented its dominance in online classifieds. For many users, particularly those under 30, Craigslist became a way of life. The seventh most visited website in the US, with 25 million monthly users, generating 10 billion page views. It served as the go-to destination for finding apartments, jobs, furniture, book clubs, nannies, or romantic encounters. Despite generating an estimated revenue of over $100 million by 2009, the company operated with just 30 employees from a Victorian house in San Francisco. Newmark himself was known to answer phones and contact users who violated the site's rules. The platform generated revenue through charges for job listings in select cities, New York apartment ads from brokers, and posts in what was initially called the Erotic Services section, later renamed Adult Services. This section became both a major traffic driver and the source of significant controversy. Sex workers found the platform particularly useful, and the scale of commercial sex advertising was substantial. Former Madam Kristen Davis reported posting around 300 ads per day for her operation. The site's Casual Encounters section facilitated various types of meetings, including those seeking transgender individuals, categorized under headings like M4T, for men seeking transgender women. This extensive use for sexual services drew sharp criticism from law enforcement. Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart characterized Craigslist as the single largest source of prostitution in the nation. Connecticut Attorney General Richard Blumenthal argued that prostitution and pornography advertisements led to serious criminal activity, including human trafficking, child exploitation, and illegal drug activity. Critics maintained that the platform provided a roadmap for predators targeting sex workers. These concerns created a fundamental tension between law enforcement demands for tighter control and the founders' commitment to free and open communication. In fall 2008, Craigslist reached an agreement with approximately 40 attorneys general to require phone numbers and credit cards from all users posting in the Erotic Services section. However, officials like Blumenthal argued the company had a moral obligation to implement additional measures, including blocking technologies and enhanced screening procedures. CEO Jim Buckmaster and founder Craig Newmark consistently defended their user empowerment model. They argued the site was effectively policed by its millions of users through a flagging system that allowed the community to identify and remove inappropriate content. Buckmaster maintained this user-based approach was more effective than any team of professional moderators could be. The company emphasized its cooperation with law enforcement investigations and argued that criminals using the platform were essentially creating an electronic trail that made their capture inevitable. While users received anonymous email addresses, their Internet Protocol addresses remained traceable, a detail many users failed to consider. According to company leadership, attempting to commit crimes through Craigslist was inherently foolish, as the digital evidence would ultimately lead investigators to the perpetrators. Under mounting pressure, particularly regarding allegations of facilitating prostitution and human trafficking, Craigslist removed its entire Adult Services section in 2010. This marked a significant moment of reckoning for the platform's governance approach and highlighted the ongoing challenges of managing an open internet platform. The platform continued to face other issues, including rampant scams, phishing attempts, and fraudulent listings, which the company addressed through incremental improvements like enhanced user flagging and phone verification systems. Despite these challenges, Craigslist maintained its role as a vital community marketplace and continued democratizing access to classified advertising. Newmark, who stepped down as CEO in 2000, remained involved at the customer service level, focusing on scam prevention while dedicating himself to philanthropy through his foundation. Under Buckmaster's leadership, the platform continued expanding to new cities and categories while maintaining its straightforward approach. Quick break. Ads keep the show running, but if you want to skip them, the ad-free version's on Patreon for just $3 a month. Links in the show notes.
You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times. Or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months. Or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan. #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking through that. Let's get back to it. On May 31st, 2007, someone created a detailed profile on alt.com, a community website dedicated to BDSM, leather, and fetish interests. The username chosen was sexaddict53885, and the profile presented a specific persona, a young college graduate from Boston. The profile included explicit visual content, a photograph showing a naked torso and erect penis. The user provided detailed personal statistics, claiming a birth date of February 12, 1986, describing themselves as having short blonde hair and blue eyes, standing 6 feet 4 inches tall, and identifying as Caucasian. The stated location was Boston, Massachusetts. Within the lifestyle preferences section, the user indicated they thought about the alt lifestyle all the time and identified their role as submissive with an experience level of "I am new at this." The profile text elaborated on these interests, stating, "I am currently a graduate student looking to experiment with the BDSM lifestyle. I am very interested in being dominated and made to do different things." The Seeking Connections section revealed broader interests. The profile specified, "I am looking for anyone open-minded, try new fetishes, or show me what you know. I enjoy women, but I really want to meet a TV/TG/TS for friendship and experimentation. I am looking for DOMs and switches, but I am open to experimenting with subs." The abbreviation TVTGTS referenced transvestite, transgender, and transsexual individuals. Following the profile creation, the user began actively engaging with the alt.com platform, building a list of connections described as friends. These connections included both male and female users, encompassing cross-dressers, transgender individuals, and dominatrices. The majority of these online connections were geographically concentrated near Boston or in upstate New York. Subsequent investigations by reporters and bloggers uncovered a broader digital presence extending beyond alt.com. Profiles using the identical username sexaddict53885 appeared on extremerestraints.com, which described itself as the ultimate fetish store, and gayclublist.com, marketed as your worldwide gay and lesbian resource. Across all these platforms, the same distinctive photograph of the naked torso appeared consistently. The alt.com profile displayed 12 virtual connections, including one identified as Extreme Dom and another describing himself as a gay firefighter seeking a submissive boy. Under a slightly modified username, sexaddict5385, an additional profile was discovered on passion.com, an adult personals website. On this platform, the user actively read and commented on sexually explicit articles, including content authored by sex workers. The digital activity extended to Craigslist, where the user browsed erotic personal sections targeting both men and women. During 2008 and again in January 2009, using a Yahoo email account with the username sexaddict5385, they responded to advertisements posted in the Casual Encounters section under the category M4T. males seeking to meet transvestites or transsexuals. This activity initiated a series of sexually explicit email exchanges with an individual who described themselves as a corporate professional and had posted one of the targeted advertisements. On May 2, 2008, an email with the subject line "Hot Tongue" was sent, containing the message, "I am a 22-year-old grad student, 6'3", 205 pounds, good build, blonde blue eyes. Let me know what else you want to see or know about me. What are you into and what are your stats? What are you doing tonight?" Throughout these email communications, the user addressed their correspondent as Babe. And despite the extensive email correspondence that developed between the two parties, no in-person meeting ever occurred. The exchanges remained confined to the digital realm, representing a pattern of online sexual exploration that maintained certain boundaries while crossing others. Tricia Leffler had traveled far from Mormon upbringing in Utah. By 29, she had abandoned her religious roots entirely and established herself in Las Vegas, where she worked in prostitution. The constant arrival of younger competitors in the city had forced her to develop a strategic approach to her work. When she saved enough money, she would travel to other locations, selecting destinations based on two criteria. The city had to offer something new and interesting to experience, and it had to provide viable work opportunities. This strategy brought her to Boston for the first time on April 9, 2009. Her criminal record for soliciting had made her naturally wary of law enforcement encounters. Despite the nature of her work, those who knew Tricia described her as a nice person, if a little lost in the world. She was a bleached blonde, 5 feet 2 inches tall, weighing approximately 135 pounds, having gained some weight over the years. Her easygoing nature served as her calling card, and she was characterized as vulnerable, agreeable, and quick to laugh, qualities that explained why clients enjoyed her company. Her closest companion was Pixie, a tiny Pomeranian dog she considered her best friend. Tricia's flight from Las Vegas touched down at Logan Airport around 6 in the evening on Thursday, April 9th. She took a taxi to her accommodation, the Westin Copley Place in Boston's upscale Back Bay neighborhood, a hotel she had booked through Hotwire.com. This was not a leisure trip. She had no interest in tourist attractions, Red Sox games, or walking the Freedom Trail. This was strictly business. Upon arriving at her hotel room, Tricia showered and discarded her dirty clothes on the floor. She then immediately logged onto her new computer to place an advertisement on Craigslist, beginning the sequence of events that would define her visit to Boston. Meanwhile, Julissa Brisman represented a different trajectory entirely. The 25-year-old woman of Dominican heritage had been raised by her mother Carmen in a Manhattan apartment on West 1 and 7th Street, alongside a sister 10 years her junior. She told friends she barely knew her father. Julissa identified strongly as a New Yorker, embracing every aspect of city life, including what she called the rude cab drivers and bipolar weather. Extended absences from the city caused her withdrawal symptoms, and she believed deeply in New York's unique magic. She once recounted how a stranger had jumped onto subway tracks to retrieve her dropped iPod. On her Facebook profile, she described herself as a born and raised NYC hottie and frequently quoted Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City, a show she adored. Standing just over 5 feet tall and weighing around 100 pounds, Julissa possessed what was described as a shape close to perfection by nearly any man's standards. She worked part-time as a model and enjoyed posing for photographs in bikinis and revealing clothing. In her early 20s, Julissa had bleached her hair blonde and embraced what friends called the ultimate New York City party girl lifestyle. Sarah, who met Julissa in 2005 through a Craigslist roommate advertisement, recalled that Julissa drank way too much and loved to party. Sarah observed that Julissa would sometimes remain drunk all day long and appeared to have no direction in life. Another friend, Monica, described Julissa during this period as promiscuous, noting she would frequently connect with different men at bars and parties. Despite this behavior, Monica loved Julissa for her gregarious spirit, describing her as fun and happy and generous. During these years, Julissa worked various positions including bartender, shoe saleswoman, and tanning salon associate. At 20, Julissa met Mark Pines, a a 60-year-old man who became her trusted advisor and assumed a protective, Svengali-like role in her life. He cast her in a public service announcement and considered her his muse, while she became his person. Pines worried that Julissa was following too closely in the footsteps of her idol, Marilyn Monroe, particularly concerning struggles with drugs and alcohol. Her closest relationship was with Coco Chanel, her tiny mixed-breed male dog. She frequently declared, "I love Coco more than all of my boyfriends combined." At the time of her death, she maintained a relationship with a boyfriend named Tommy, whom she adored and who lived in Colorado. Julissa had developed peculiar eating habits, such as consuming a pint of cookies and cream ice cream topped with cashews and strawberries for breakfast. On April 14, 2007, Julissa experienced what she described as an epiphany. She wrote in her journal, "I woke up April 14 and said, I can't do this anymore. I'm turning 24 in 2 weeks and need to change." This moment initiated a complete transformation. She abandoned drugs and alcohol, joined Alcoholics Anonymous, and attended meetings daily. She commemorated the beginning of her sobriety with an ankle tattoo featuring the date and quit her bartending job because the environment proved too tempting. The change was profound and visible to those around her. Her mother felt overjoyed, and Mark Pines observed he was watching her become a woman. Julissa began making amends with former friends like Sarah, apologizing for past behavior. She altered her appearance, transitioning from bleached blonde to brunette, and adopted a vegetarian lifestyle. Focused on helping others, Julissa decided to pursue a career as a substance abuse counselor. She enrolled in classes at the City College of New York to obtain certification as an alcohol and substance abuse counselor. Her instructor, Jack Bennett, found her to be shy and self-effacing, a dramatic contrast to her former persona. He was impressed by her independent thinking and critical thinking skills and noted she was always impeccably dressed for their Saturday morning sessions. Despite abandoning her regular employment, friends noticed Julissa never seemed short of money. She purchased a new computer for her sister and dressed herself in designer clothing and accessories, including $300 Prada sunglasses. She began traveling extensively to destinations including London, Iceland, Boston, and Los Angeles. When questioned about her income sources, her explanations never really made a lot of sense, and she remained kind of vague. She told one friend she could earn $1,000 per night at bachelor parties simply by walking around in a bikini, insisting she would never touch them. Julissa had begun working as a masseuse, offering sensual or erotic massages. She approached this work seriously, purchasing her own massage table and receiving training from a professional masseuse. However, accounts of her work varied among friends. Her former roommate Sarah insisted that Julissa maintained clear boundaries, always including the phrase "no full service" in her advertisements, and did not think highly of prostitution. Kristen Davis, a former madam, claimed Julissa had worked for her providing body rub services, which Davis defined as sensual massage performed in lingerie with some touching involved, but no sex. Monica provided the most explicit details, claiming Julissa's work consisted of 1-hour massages concluding with what she termed a happy ending, specifically a hand job, during which clients were not permitted to touch her. According to Monica, Julissa could see up to 8 clients daily, earning up to $1,000, and her business operated nationwide, taking her on trips lasting weeks. Monica believed some of these trips were organized by a man who retained a percentage of earnings, though she suspected Julissa was working independently on her final journey. Julissa used various aliases in her advertisements, including Morgan, Susie, and Rachel. This work was bringing Julissa to Boston on Monday, April 13th, where her path would intersect with events already set in motion by Tricia Leffler's arrival 4 days earlier. Thursday evening, April 9, 2009, Tricia Leffler completed her check-in procedures at the Westin Copley Place and immediately began working. After showering and discarding her travel clothes, she logged onto her computer and composed an advertisement for the erotic services section of Craigslist. The ad offered potential clients the opportunity to spend some time with a sweet blonde and included her cell phone number. Late that evening, extending into the early hours of Friday morning, her phone began receiving calls. After fielding several inquiries, she received a call from a man who sounded more serious than previous callers. He requested her location, which she confirmed as a hotel in Copley Square, and asked about her rates. She quoted $200 for an hour, which he accepted without negotiation. Leffler maintained that their conversation contained no explicit discussion of sexual services. He was simply paying for her time. She instructed him to call when he reached the hotel lobby. Approximately 20 to 30 minutes later, the man called from the Westin lobby. Leffler informed him she was on the 13th floor. Following her established safety protocol, she met him at the elevator bank to evaluate him before revealing her specific room number. She observed a tall, attractive man dressed in a black leather coat, dark jeans, and a tan shirt. Satisfied with her assessment, she felt comfortable proceeding and motioned for him to follow her to the room. The moment they entered the room and she closed the door, the man produced a black semi-automatic handgun. He ordered her to lie on the floor, and she complied while attempting to remain calm. The perpetrator, who stood well over 6 feet tall, returned the weapon to his pocket, put on black leather gloves, and positioned himself behind her. He secured her hands behind her back using plastic zip ties, speaking in a calm and polite manner. "If you just be quiet, no harm's going to come to you." He then systematically began robbing her. When he asked for the location of her money, she directed him to her purse, where he discovered and took $800 in cash. He methodically went through her wallet, removing each credit card individually and asking what type each one was. He demanded the PIN for her bank debit card, which she provided, warning her it had better be correct. Leffler asked if he would leave her identification so she could travel home. The perpetrator studied the ID for approximately a minute, as if memorizing her address, before throwing it on the floor. She then requested that he leave her one credit card. He cleverly pocketed the specific card she had requested and threw down a different one instead. He also took her Sony CyberShot camera. The perpetrator helped her into a sitting position, though her hands remained secured behind her back. He took her cell phone and, fumbling while wearing gloves, deleted his number from her call history before removing the battery and throwing it behind the entertainment center. He then selected a pair of her white and cream-colored thong underwear from a pile of dirty clothes and placed them in his pocket. Stating, "I need time to get out of here," the perpetrator looked for something to secure her to. After a brief discussion where she suggested possible objects, he tied her to the bathroom door. At this point, she noticed he was no longer wearing gloves. He placed 3 pieces of tape over her mouth. Unbeknownst to Leffler at the time, he also took a second pair of underwear, a new pink thong with black bows, from her suitcase. Finally, he produced what she described as a huge silver knife and used it to cut the telephone lines. Before departing, he told her, "In 15 minutes, I'll call security and tell them I heard something in the room. They'll come up and set you free." Immediately after the perpetrator left, Leffler waited briefly to ensure his departure, then freed herself from the zip ties within approximately 10 to 20 seconds and removed the tape from her mouth. Concerned he might still be in the hotel, she ran to a neighboring room and pounded on the door. A man, who identified himself as a doctor from Tennessee, allowed her inside, and she called security. The time was 12:45 a.m. Boston police detectives, including Sergeant Detective Dan Keeler, arrived and interviewed her for the next 2 hours. They cordoned off her room as a crime scene and relocated her to a different room for questioning. Though initially reluctant to cooperate due to her past arrests for soliciting, Leffler found the detectives nice and understanding and provided full cooperation. Later that morning, she accompanied police to headquarters to view mugshots, but was unable to identify anyone. However, when investigators showed her grainy surveillance photographs taken from hotel security cameras, she immediately identified the man as her attacker. Investigators informed her that approximately 1 hour after the robbery, the perpetrator had used her debit card at an ATM near a pizza establishment. He successfully withdrew $20, which represented the total balance in her account. Loeffler made the decision to remain in Boston, both because she was waiting for funds from a friend and because she hoped to recoup some of her financial losses. Police retained her cell phone as evidence. Monday, April 13, 2009. The day after Easter, 25-year-old Julissa Brisman boarded an Amtrak train in New York City, destined for Boston. As someone who identified herself as an NYC hottie and loved her hometown, the only reason she would travel to the home of what she called the hated Red Sox was for work. She had scheduled appointments with several regular massage clients and planned to find new ones by advertising on Craigslist. During the train journey, she met a Yale medical student she found attractive. The two exchanged phone numbers and discussed the possibility of a date while she was in town. Upon arriving in Boston, Julissa checked into her room at the Marriott Hotel in Copley Square. The day proceeded uneventfully as she attended to her regular clients. To generate new business, she asked a girlfriend to post an advertisement for her on Craigslist under the alias Morgan. The ad was headlined, "Hot brunette model and masseuse visiting today," and contained the following text. "Hi, my girlfriend Morgan, the massage therapist, will be visiting Boston Monday, April 13th, available from 1 p.m. until 11 p.m., Tuesday, April 14th from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Wednesday, April 15th from 7 a.m. to noon at checkout. She visits only once every 1 to 2 months, so don't miss her." Her pics are real, recent, and attached to this message. She is visiting just these couple of days, and I highly recommend her. If you would like to schedule, please email back several time preferences that work for you during Morgan's window of availability, and I will do my best to accommodate you. Be sure to include your phone number. I do not give out a contact number until you have provided yours. Kisses, Morgan and Mary. With the advertisement posted, Julissa settled in for what turned out to be a quiet night for business. Following her usual practice when traveling, she preferred remaining in her hotel room rather than exploring the city. That evening, she ordered room service, watched a Dane Cook movie, and went to sleep. Tuesday, April 14, 2009, Julissa woke up in her 20th floor room at the Marriott feeling energized and jazzed from the movie she had watched the previous evening. She posted on her Facebook wall, "Almost forgot just how good staying in and watching a funny Dane Cook movie can be." At some point during the day, she attended a local Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Friends later confirmed she was religious about attending these meetings, even when traveling. Throughout the day, she remained active on Facebook, which served as her virtual playground. At 4:04 p.m., she posted a list of her favorite bands: The Killers, Led Zeppelin, Third Eye Blind, The Cure, and Every Avenue. By 5:03 p.m., she was chatting with Jeremy J. Gray, an old high school acquaintance who had recently reconnected with her on the platform. Gray teased her about staying in while he was about to go out partying. She responded jokingly that he was fucking crazy and that she was tired for the first time in like forever. Meanwhile, Julissa's girlfriend, who had posted the Craigslist advertisement, received an email from a man in Boston expressing interest in an appointment. The friend emailed Julissa's cell phone number to the man and informed Julissa to expect his call. Soon after, a man with what she described as a polite tone called her. He said he was visiting from out of town and wanted to see her around 10 p.m. When he asked if that time was too late, she replied, "No prob, up until 11 p.m. is good." Just 5 minutes before the 10 p.m. appointment, Julissa was speaking on the phone with her close friend Sarah. She told Sarah she had to end the call because her new client was due to arrive, describing him as sounding friendly and cordial. Sarah, who acted protective like a mother hen, urged her to be careful and insisted that Julissa send her a text message when the client arrived. That night, Sarah's phone remained silent. Sometime after 10 p.m., Jill Stern, a realtor from Greenwich Village staying with her son in room 2041, heard a commotion down the hall. It sounded like furniture being moved, followed by a high-pitched shriek. After a moment, she heard a second shriek. Jill opened her door and saw what she initially thought was a child lying on the hallway carpet, positioned halfway in and out of a room. The person's head was down, and their dark brown hair was spread out. Thinking it was a child having a tantrum, Jill called out, "Are you okay, buddy?" but received no response. As she considered what to do, an elevator opened, and a young woman who appeared a bit tipsy walked toward them. Stopped abruptly upon seeing the body, exclaimed, "Holy shit," and then entered the room next door, slamming it shut. Around this time, Jill heard a guttural sound. With the person on the floor still not moving or responding, Jill dialed the hotel operator and asked them to come up to the 20th floor. A security guard arrived almost immediately, knelt down, moved the woman's hair away, and Jill could see blood. The guard seemed to panic, repeating, "Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ." He ordered Jill back into her room, but she did not comply. He then spoke urgently into his walkie-talkie. "This is an emergency. Call EMTs and the police right away." The guard turned the woman over. She was barely alive, dying right there on a nondescript hallway carpet, face down in her own blood. Soon, paramedics and police officers filled the hallway. As police escorted her past Jalissa's room, number 2034, Jill noticed that the mirrored glass closet just inside the doorway was shattered, with round impressions left by 2 bullets clearly visible. Jalissa Brisman had been mortally wounded. Her head showed evidence of blunt trauma from being struck, and she had been shot 3 times at point-blank range. The bullets had torn into her rib, spinal cord, and lung, with the fatal shot passing directly through her heart. She was pronounced dead at 10:36 p.m. in the emergency room at Boston Medical Center. Thousands of miles away, her friend Sarah was becoming increasingly worried. She never received the text confirming the client's arrival or departure. After an hour, she called Jalissa's hotel room, but there was no answer. She sent a text message, "Have fun with your Yale boy. Just text me when you get a chance. Let me know you're okay," and went to sleep. At 4 a.m., Sarah woke up and checked her phone. Still nothing from Jalissa. She knew immediately that something was wrong. She called the hotel again and asked for security, but they would not provide any information, finally suggesting she call the Boston police. Sarah made the call and learned that her worst fear had come true. Jalissa had been murdered. Later that morning, Sarah located the email the presumed killer had sent in response to the Craigslist advertisement and forwarded it to Boston detectives, providing them with their first major lead in the case. Quick break. Ads keep the show running, but if you want to skip them, the ad-free version's on Patreon for just $3 a month. Links in the show notes.
You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times. Or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months. Or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan. #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking through that. Let's get back to it. Wednesday morning, April 15th, 2009. The story of the murder at the Copley Marriott began to spread across Boston's media landscape. Maria Kramer, a crime reporter for the Boston Globe, received a call from her editor and immediately understood that a shooting in such an elegant Back Bay hotel would generate significant coverage. As details emerged throughout the day, reporters learned that the victim had advertised on Craigslist as a masseuse, and that police were connecting her murder to the robbery of a prostitute from Las Vegas at the nearby Westin Hotel less than a week earlier. The Craigslist connection captured public attention and fueled fears that a killer was using the familiar website to select victims like the rest of us might pick out a used kitchen table. Reporters worked their phones relentlessly and turned to Facebook, which proved to be a reporter's best friend, to locate and contact Julissa Brisman's friends and associates. When police released surveillance photographs from both hotels, the media was struck by the suspect's appearance and demeanor. The images showed a tall, blonde man who resembled a college student from an Abercrombie & Fitch fashion shoot rather than a typical murder suspect. In the photographs, he appeared casual and nonchalant, calmly examining his BlackBerry as if he didn't have a care in the world, even after allegedly committing murder. This incongruous image of the perpetrator only intensified media interest in the case. For Boston homicide detectives, the murder confirmed their worst fears. A single perpetrator was responsible for both hotel attacks in the heart of the city's tourist district, with the Boston Marathon scheduled for just days away. The connections were unmistakable. Both women had advertised services on Craigslist, and in both cases, the assailant used plastic zip tie restraints. In Julissa Brisman's case, a single zip tie was found dangling from her wrist, suggesting she had fought back before her attacker could fully restrain her. Detectives believed the struggle had escalated into a robbery gone wrong, culminating in murder. The new, clearer surveillance photographs from the Marriott eliminated any doubt that the same man was responsible for the Westin robbery. Detectives immediately contacted Tricia Leffler, instructing her not to move. When they showed her the new photograph, she instantly recognized him. "Oh, this is a really good picture of him. Where did you get it?" she asked before her heart sank upon learning that he had murdered another woman the previous night. Police also decided to expedite fingerprint analysis of the tape the perpetrator had used on Tricia's mouth, as she recalled he was not wearing gloves at that moment. A major breakthrough came when Julissa's heartbroken friend Sarah, having learned of the murder, located and forwarded the email the presumed killer had sent in response to the Craigslist advertisement. This provided detectives with their first significant lead. With this email, forensic investigators, assisted by the NYPD's cybercrime unit, began the meticulous work of tracing the perpetrator's internet protocol address. Investigators recognized the perpetrator had made several critical errors, including removing his gloves and failing to wear a disguise, but his use of the internet was the most significant mistake. At 11 in the morning, Julissa's mother Carmen and other family members met with police in Boston, where she completed the painful identification of her daughter's body. Meanwhile, friends like Mark Pines and Jay Gray learned of her death through phone calls from her mother and reporters, expressing shock and disbelief. Jill Stern, the witness who had discovered Julissa in the hotel hallway, became fearful for her own safety after her name and neighborhood were published in news reports while the killer remained at large. Thursday, April 16, 2009, while police worked around the clock and camera crews maintained their vigil outside the Marriott Hotel, the perpetrator was moving. That day, he traveled to Foxwoods Resort Casino in Connecticut. A young mother named Jamie, who was playing blackjack with a friend, felt an immediate chill when a tall, clean-cut blonde man sat down at their table. She described him as having a black cloud over his head and a stone-cold face. His presence made her feel very, very weird and creepy and uncomfortable, as he kept staring at her chest in an intense, strange way. She watched as he lost approximately $600 in an hour and a half, rolling his eyes in frustration before getting up and mumbling a curse as he departed. When she later saw news reports, she recognized him as the weird guy from the casino. Later that night, the perpetrator struck again. Amber, a 26-year-old exotic dancer from Las Vegas, had placed an advertisement on Craigslist for private lap dances in her room at the Holiday Inn Express in Warwick, Rhode Island. The hotel was located midway between Foxwoods Casino and Boston. A man arranged a $100 lap dance for around 11 in the evening, calling and texting while en route. At 10:51 p.m., hotel surveillance cameras captured a tall blonde man entering the lobby. In Amber's third-floor room, she noticed he spoke with an accent and told her he was from Boston. He then produced a gun, his hand shaking, and repeatedly said, "I don't want to kill you. I'm broke and I just need some cash or some cards." He ordered her face down on the floor and secured her hands behind her back with zip ties. The situation was interrupted when Amber's phone began ringing, making the gunman extremely nervous. The caller was her husband, who was waiting downstairs in the lobby for a text message that never arrived. Her husband, who possessed a room key, then burst into the room. The gunman threatened him with the weapon, and the husband fled back into the hallway. The gunman immediately escaped in the opposite direction, leaving the hotel without taking anything. Warwick police were summoned, and a hotel security guard had to cut the zip ties from Amber's wrists. Local police quickly alerted Boston detectives, who confirmed through the Holiday Inn surveillance footage that the same man was responsible. Investigators in Boston were astounded by his brazenness, noting that he was acting in a frenzy and in apparent disregard for his own safety, despite the massive media attention surrounding the case. They theorized he might be driven by drug addiction or was a sociopath who needed to be stopped before he killed again. The digital trail was leading investigators closer to their target. The email address, the IP tracking, the forensic evidence, everything was converging on a single point. Computer forensics experts worked methodically through server logs and digital breadcrumbs, following the electronic path back to its source. Each piece of data brought them closer to identifying the man who had terrorized multiple women across New England. The investigation was accelerating. With clear surveillance footage, witness testimony, physical evidence, and now digital forensics all pointing toward the same perpetrator, detectives knew they were closing in. The brazenness of the Rhode Island attempt, coming so soon after the Boston murder amid massive media coverage, suggested either desperation or a complete disregard for consequences. Somewhere in the Boston area, a killer believed he had covered his tracks. He was wrong. Philip Markoff was born on February 12, 1986, to Dr. Richard Markoff, a dentist practicing in Syracuse, New York, and Susan Haynes. His parents divorced when he was very young, leading to a divided family arrangement. Philip was raised by his mother in Sherrill, New York, while his older brother John lived with their father. Following the divorce, his mother remarried Gary Carroll, a banker who developed a close relationship with Philip. When Philip was 5 years old, his mother and stepfather had a daughter, giving him a younger half-sister. Susan worked as a stay-at-home mother when her children were young, but eventually took a position in the gift shop at the nearby Turning Stone Resort Casino. Though his mother and stepfather later divorced, both continued to reside in Sherrill. Philip grew up in Sherrill, a community that takes pride in being the smallest city in New York State, with a population of only 3,150. The town was described as placid, with a hometown feel, and locals sometimes referred to it as Pleasantville. It was a tight-knit community that strongly supported its children, focusing on parks, community centers, and local events including concerts and parades. He attended local schools and graduated from Vernon Verona Sherrill High School in 2004 in a class of approximately 150 students. During his high school years, he was a member of the National Honor Society and participated in youth court. He also engaged in sports, joining both the golf and bowling teams. A childhood friend described him as a great bowler who would occasionally display temper when he failed to achieve a strike or spare. He apparently excelled at poker, even bequeathing his playing skills to a friend in his yearbook. Socially, acquaintances from high school held varied perceptions of him. Many described him as a normal, average high schooler who was a really nice kid and never aggressive or mean. He was noted for his exceptional height, which made him appear physically awkward, as if he hadn't grown into his body yet. He tended to associate with what others called the nerdy geeks rather than the popular crowd. However, one female classmate, Andrea, held a starkly different view, describing him as mean, condescending, and arrogant from first grade through college. She claimed he enjoyed targeting her with taunts, calling her stupid and dumb. Friends from that period noted that he largely ignored his female classmates, and they could not recall him having a single girlfriend during high school. In the fall of 2004, Philip enrolled at the University at Albany SUNY, where he lived on the honors floor of his freshman dormitory. As a pre-medical student majoring in biology, he was widely regarded by his peers as exceptionally intelligent and gifted. He undertook a heavy course load with additional classes, allowing him to graduate in only 3 years. While friends noted he sometimes appeared stressed from his studies, they also observed that he would always bounce right back. At UAlbany, he joined the co-ed college fraternity Phi Delta Epsilon. Friends from this period described him as a nice, easygoing guy who could also be a little bit awkward and lacking in some social skills. He was not a loner, but neither was he the life of the party. He continued playing Texas Hold'em poker with friends, though the stakes were reportedly low. He was also a die-hard Republican and member of the College Republicans Club, which was notable on a campus with a predominantly left-wing student body. A fellow club member described him as a throwback to a more conservative era in his views on men's and women's roles in society. Another acquaintance, who was gay, recalled arguing with him over his off-color comments about women and oppressed people, but felt Philip's views were not uncommon among other straight men on campus. While some friends felt he was not a ladies' man and didn't focus much attention on pursuing women, one female friend and fraternity sister, Morgan Houston, recalled an uncomfortable incident. After a night of drinking with a group of friends, she said he cornered her outside their dormitory, pushed her against a wall, and forcefully tried to kiss her. She was unable to push him away until another friend intervened. She stated that she chalked it up to the alcohol and chose not to report the incident, preferring to forget about it. During his sophomore year, on September 19, 2005, Philip met Megan McAllister, a senior at UAlbany. They were both volunteering at Albany Medical Center, pushing stretchers down hallways and bringing blood and urine samples to pathology together, before having their first date on November 11, 2005. In early 2007, Philip Markoff completed his undergraduate studies, graduating from UAlbany summa cum laude with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology after just 3 years. For 3 days, police forensic investigators, assisted by the NYPD's cybercrime unit, had worked intensively to trace the IP address from the email sent to Jalissa Brisman's friend. On the night of Saturday, April 18th, they achieved a breakthrough. With help from internet service provider Comcast, they traced the email to a name and physical address, number 8 High Point Circle in Quincy, a working-class city just 10 miles south of Boston. This lead was described as incredible, akin to a treasure map marked with an X. However, investigators understood it wasn't definitive. The suspect's computer could have been used by someone else, or a neighbor could have accessed an unsecured wireless connection. The critical next step required old-fashioned police work. They needed to determine if the resident matched the man in the surveillance photographs. That night, at least 6 unmarked police cars moved stealthily as sharks into position around the High Point Circle condominium complex, a relatively new development situated on a slight hill that affected a certain exclusive air. The Boston Police Department's elite fugitive unit, led by Sergeant Detective Brian Albert, established the stakeout. Albert, a former U.S. Marine, possessed a well-developed specialty for matching suspects to surveillance photos, a skill honed during the First Gulf War and further sharpened during his time in Boston's toughest neighborhoods and gang unit. His team covered both exits of the building at number 8 High Point Circle, knowing any resident would likely head for the parking lot or adjacent garage. The night passed with long periods of waiting as the unit listened to music, reviewed the suspect's file, and consumed Red Bull to stay alert. They switched cars periodically to avoid detection. The stakeout continued through the early morning hours of Sunday, April 19th, extending into mid-morning when the officers spotted their target. A tall blonde man exited the building, accompanied by an attractive blonde woman. Investigators immediately focused their attention, comparing the man to the surveillance images. His height appeared to be over 6 feet tall, towering over his companion. His hair was blonde. His gait was described as both awkward and athletic-looking, reminiscent of Boston Celtics center Kevin McHale. Sergeant Detective Albert was immediately confident. He later told the Boston Herald, "I was surprised at how much he looked like the pictures I saw from the incidents in Boston and Rhode Island. It was exciting to see him up close." Sergeant Detective Daniel Duff, the lead detective on the case, also felt they were onto something, though he cautioned, "We didn't want to jump to any conclusions." The couple entered a Toyota Corolla, and undercover officers began surveillance. Their Sunday excursion was mundane. They visited a local BJ's wholesale club and purchased a case of bottled water and other items. Undercover officers followed them through every aisle, observing an unusual dynamic between the two. The woman was described as lovey-dovey, kissing and hugging the man, but he appeared removed and appeared cold to her. Albert thought the man looked stressed and noted he was not smiling, seeming to have a lot on his mind. Investigators transmitted word back to headquarters that they believed they had identified their suspect. Albert's succinct assessment was relayed. "I like him." Given his track record, his evaluation was considered reliable. Background information was compiled, identifying the suspect as a 23-year-old medical student and the woman as his 25-year-old fiancée. The remainder of Sunday was quiet. The suspect emerged a couple of times to work under the hood of a second vehicle, with his fiancée beside him. Again, officers noted she was bubbly and energetic, described by one as giggly as she flirted with him while he focused on the engine. "She looked like she was living in a fairy tale," one officer observed. The stakeout, which now included at least 20 officers and Police Commissioner Ed Davis himself, continued into Monday. As Sunday transitioned into Monday, investigators were eager to bring the suspect in for questioning. They felt they had sufficient evidence for a search warrant, but the district attorney's office wanted one additional piece of evidence before authorizing an arrest: an eyewitness identification. The call went out for Tricia Leffler, who was now in New York City. Monday afternoon, the case went into overdrive. Sometime after 3 p.m., the officers conducting surveillance observed something concerning. The suspect and his fiancée exited the apartment building carrying a suitcase and small backpack. The couple entered their Toyota Corolla and began driving south on Interstate 95. The police, following in a convoy of unmarked vehicles, did not know their destination, but realized they would soon cross from Massachusetts into Rhode Island. That same morning, Rhode Island authorities had released new surveillance photographs from the Holiday Inn Express robbery, and police feared the suspect might have been spooked into fleeing. Sergeant Detective Albert later recalled the intensity of the moment. "There's a million things going through your head. Is he taking off because he saw the surveillance photos?" Police Commissioner Davis and District Attorney Dan Conley were alerted. Conley stated, "We agreed we didn't want this guy leaving Massachusetts. He was not going to be allowed to leave Massachusetts." Simultaneously in Manhattan, a delicate police operation was underway. 2 Boston detectives who had been in Atlantic City for the weekend were ordered to step on it and meet with NYPD officers. A clear photograph of the suspect, his Boston University identification photo, had been transmitted to them. District Attorney Conley insisted that the identification process be conducted properly. Following advice from expert Dr. Gary Wells, the procedure was handled strictly. An NYPD sergeant with no knowledge of the suspect's identity would show Tricia the photographs. The 8 photos were stacked like a deck of cards, and she would be asked to turn them over one at a time. By the time the officers met and reached Tricia's location, it was approaching 4 p.m. The suspect's car was getting closer to the Rhode Island border, and tension was mounting. Inside the room, the NYPD sergeant presented Tricia with the stack of photographs. She turned the images over one by one without hesitation. "I stopped on number 5 and said, 'That's him,'" Tricia recalled. The moment she saw the picture, she began shaking. The New York officer stepped into the hallway and informed the Boston detectives that she had made a positive identification. One of the Boston officers was already on his cell phone with Lieutenant Detective Robert Murner, head of the homicide unit. At 4:03 p.m., Tricia made her identification. The photograph she had selected showed Philip Markoff, a 23-year-old medical student at Boston University. Upon hearing the positive identification, Murner immediately gave the order to the trailing officers to stop the vehicle. At 4:07 p.m., on Interstate 95 near Walpole, Massachusetts, less than 50 miles from the Rhode Island border, unmarked police cars surrounded the Toyota Corolla and initiated the traffic stop. The man who had terrorized women across New England, who had appeared so ordinary in surveillance footage, who had managed to maintain the facade of a respectable medical student while secretly hunting victims online, was finally in custody. Philip Markoff's double life was over. Quick break. Ads keep the show running, but if you want to skip them, the ad-free version's on Patreon for just $3 a month. Links in the show notes.
You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times. Or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months. Or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan, #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown.
It's Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Get up to 35% off select major appliances and save an additional $1,000 when you buy 4 select LG major appliances. Plus, get a free DeWalt 20-volt max 5 amp-hour battery when you buy a select DeWalt 20-volt max tool. Get the job done for less at Lowe's. We help. You save. Valid through 9/26. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See associate or Lowe's.com for more details and qualifying items.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking through that. Let's get back to it. Monday evening, April 20th, Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis and Suffolk County District Attorney Dan Conley held a press conference to announce that an arrest had been made in the Craigslist killer case. Commissioner Davis expressed his satisfaction, stating, "We are very, very happy to have this man off the street in such a timely way." When asked if the suspect had been tracked electronically, Conley confirmed they had followed a multitude of avenues, high-tech leads, and old-fashioned shoe leather, including matching IP addresses to physical locations. The announcement that the suspect was Philip Markoff, a 23-year-old second-year medical student at the prestigious Boston University School of Medicine, sent the already intense story into the stratosphere. The press went crazy over the irony that Markoff was training to save lives at Boston Medical Center, the same emergency room where Julissa Brisman had been pronounced dead. Crime reporter Maria Kramer noted the profound shock of the revelation. This is a suspect who, by any stretch of the imagination, has everything going for him. He has no criminal record. He was an ambitious, intelligent man who had a future ahead of him. If police are correct, then he has been leading a double life. Media crews immediately descended on his apartment complex at 8 High Point Circle in Quincy. Neighbors expressed their shock. Jonathan Uva, who lived next door, said, "Knowing him and hearing all of this, it just doesn't connect to the guy I know." Another neighbor, Mike Dye, who had invited Markoff to his Super Bowl party, described him as a normal, down-to-earth guy. Reporters began investigating Markoff's background, uncovering that he had graduated summa cum laude from UAlbany in just 3 years, and that the Boston Globe had a photograph of him in its archives from his white coat day at medical school, capturing him with an ear-to-ear grin. The media also quickly discovered the extensive wedding website Markoff and his fiancée, Megan McAllister, had created for their planned August 14th wedding. The site, which was shut down the next day, detailed their courtship, which began while volunteering at Albany Medical Center and featured a countdown clock ticking down the seconds until their ceremony. Before it was taken down, one user posted a question on the guest registry: "Has the groom killed anyone there yet?" In the early morning hours of Tuesday, April 21st, Megan McAllister sent emails to the Boston Herald and ABC's Good Morning America, staunchly defending her fiancé. She wrote, "Philip is a beautiful person inside and out and could not hurt a fly," and vowed to stand by him, claiming a Boston police officer was trying to make big bucks by selling this false story. That same day, details from the police search of Markoff's apartment began to leak, painting a damning picture. Police allegedly found plastic zip ties, duct tape, and a semi-automatic firearm hidden inside a hollowed-out copy of the medical textbook Gray's Anatomy. Detectives called Tricia Leffler from the apartment to confirm descriptions of items stolen from her. She verified that the two pairs of underwear found, one white and cream, the other pink with black bows, were hers. She also told them her camera, American Express gift cards, a knife, and a gun had been taken. Officers informed her they had found the gift cards, knife, gun, and both pairs of underwear, but not the camera. The discovery of the underwear led criminologist Dr. Casey Jordan to speculate that the crimes had a sexual component, and that Markoff was a thrill-seeker who took souvenirs to relive the events. At 4 p.m., Philip Markoff was arraigned in Boston Municipal Court. He appeared alone, without family or his fiancée, supported only by his court-appointed defense attorney, John Salzberg. Julissa Brisman's father, Hector, sat in the front row. Markoff, wearing tan trousers and a striped shirt, looked rumpled, but his face was expressionless, though his rapid breathing and blinking suggested nervousness. Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Hickman laid out the state's case, citing forensic evidence from the crime scenes, electronic communications, and surveillance video that connected Markoff to both the robbery of Tricia Leffler and the murder of Julissa Brisman. She stated that Brisman had sustained blunt head trauma and 3 gunshot wounds at close range, with the fatal shot going through her heart. The judge set bail on the robbery and kidnapping charges at $250,000, but ordered Markoff held without bail on the murder charge. After the hearing, Salzberg stated, "Philip Markoff is not guilty of the charges." District Attorney Conley told the press, "We're dealing with somebody who is fairly clever, choosing women who were vulnerable to dominate them, to hurt them to get what he wants." Wednesday, April 22nd, Julissa Brisman's family held a wake for her at a funeral home in New York. Her mother, Carmen, was heard crying in Spanish. "Why not me? Why her? She was only 25. The family released a statement expressing their devastation and relief that the man who did this is in custody. Friends defended her memory against rumors she was a prostitute, and James Destry, a founding member of the band Blondie, whom she had met in class, told the Daily News, "I want people to know she was more than the masseuse." Her Facebook wall was flooded with messages of grief and shock. Friday, April 24th, Markoff's parents, Dr. Richard Markoff and Susan Haynes, visited him at the Nashua Street Jail for the first time since his arrest. They were surrounded by media but said nothing. Later, Markoff's brother John and his wife also visited. According to sources cited by the Boston Herald, the meeting between the brothers was emotional, and Philip broke down, telling John, "Forget about me. There is more coming out. Move to California." When asked about these remarks, his lawyer would neither confirm nor deny them. Saturday, April 25th, on the day she would have turned 26 years old, Julissa Brisman was buried. Her friend Kiki wrote on Facebook, "Happy birthday, my honey buns. I wish you were here. Makes me sad to think that you're getting buried on your birthday." Days after the arrest, NBC's Today Show aired a report featuring a corporate professional who, with his identity concealed, revealed that he had exchanged erotic emails with Markoff. The man had posted an advertisement on Craigslist under M4T, males seeking to meet transvestites or transsexuals, and was answered by Markoff using the username SexAddict5385. In the emails, Markoff used his full name and sent photographs of his face and naked torso. One email, with the subject line, "Hot Tongue," was sent on May 2nd, 2008, less than 2 weeks before he proposed to Megan McAllister. Thursday, April 30th, Megan McAllister left her family's home in New Jersey and traveled to Boston for a face-to-face visit with Markoff at the Nashua Street Jail. It was the first time she had seen him since their arrest. A reporter at the jail noted that she was no longer wearing her engagement ring. After the hour-long meeting, her attorney, Robert Honecker, spoke to the press. He stated that Megan was beginning to realize the seriousness of the charges and that the visit was a big step for her to get on with her life. He confirmed that the August wedding was off and being dismantled. Megan herself issued a formal statement expressing that her life had been dramatically changed and that her heart goes out to all of those afflicted by these events. While she stated her intent to cooperate fully with the investigation, she also maintained, "What has been portrayed and leaked to the media is not the Philip Markoff that I know. He is innocent until proven guilty." The facade of respectability that had concealed Markoff's crimes was crumbling. The medical student who had maintained a wedding website while secretly prowling Craigslist for victims, who had kept stolen underwear as trophies while planning his future as a doctor, was finally exposed. The double life that had allowed him to operate undetected for months had collapsed in a matter of days, leaving behind a trail of devastated families and a community struggling to understand how someone who appeared so normal could harbor such darkness. May 4th, 2009, Rhode Island Attorney General Patrick Lynch and Warwick Police Chief Stephen McCartney announced that they had issued an arrest warrant for Philip Markoff, charging him with armed robbery and assault for the April 16th attack on the exotic dancer, Amber, at the Holiday Inn Express. Although Markoff was already in custody in Boston, the announcement formalized the charges against him in the neighboring state. Authorities did not detail their evidence, which newspapers had previously reported included Markoff's fingerprint in the hotel stairwell and text message data placing him at the scene. Attorney General Lynch stated simply that the person who attacked Amber and her husband was Philip Markoff. During his remarks, Lynch also commented on the role of the internet, noting that while there are predators out there, the internet has blessed us all with a wonderful tool to exchange information. Except for his initial arraignment, Markoff managed to stay out of public view. On May 21st, he ducked a second procedural hearing, and 2 months after his arrest, the public had still not heard him speak a word. In mid-June, Megan McAllister testified before the grand jury that was hearing evidence in the case against her former fiancé. According to her lawyer, she told them that she knew nothing of Markoff's alleged criminal activities and provided an alibi for her own whereabouts. She was in New Jersey from March 20th through April 18th, returning to their Quincy apartment just as police were beginning their surveillance. During that same trip to Boston, Megan made one final decisive stop. She visited Markoff in jail and told him, in no uncertain terms, that she was no longer his fiancée and that she was moving on with her life. On Father's Day, Sunday, June 21st, the case, which had fallen silent, broke wide open. The public information officer for the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office sent out an email announcing that a grand jury had secretly indicted Philip Markoff on first-degree murder, kidnapping, armed robbery, and other charges. The District Attorney's Office revealed new details that showed a troubling degree of premeditation. In February 2009, 2 months before the crime spree began, Markoff had purchased several disposable TracFone cell phones, which are difficult to trace as they don't require personal information or a service contract. He allegedly kept the phones after the crimes, and police found 3 of them, including those used to contact Tricia Leffler and Jaleesa Brisman, along with the purchase receipts in his apartment. The gun found hidden inside a hollowed-out Gray's Anatomy textbook was identified as a 9mm Springfield Armory XD9 semi-automatic. Markoff had allegedly purchased it at a gun shop in New Hampshire using a driver's license that belonged to a New York resident named Andrew Miller. Investigators could not establish a connection between the 2 men, and Miller reportedly did not resemble Markoff. Markoff's fingerprints were allegedly found on the gun purchase documents. The indictment charged that Markoff struck Jaleesa Brisman twice in the head with the butt of his handgun after she resisted him. District Attorney Conley stated, The blows to her head were so sharp and so violent that they fractured her skull. Police found 4 pairs of women's underwear rolled up in a pair of socks and hidden in the box spring of Markoff's mattress. Tricia Leffler identified 2 pairs as hers. The owners of the other 2 pairs were unknown, but police established they did not belong to Megan McAllister. Investigators found remnants of the email communication between Markoff and Jaleesa on a black Toshiba laptop discovered in the apartment. The day after the indictment was announced, Philip Markoff was required to appear in Suffolk Superior Court to answer the charges. The small courtroom was standing room only, packed with media. Markoff's family, his father, mother, brother, and sister-in-law, sat huddled together in a back row, saying almost nothing as they waited for over an hour. One reporter noted their silent support as an act of love. The hearing was delayed until Jaleesa Brisman's family, including her mother Carmen and her younger sister, arrived from New York. They were seated in the front row, separated from the Markoff family only by a small aisle. At 11:01 a.m., Philip Markoff entered the courtroom. The sole sound was his leg irons dragging along the floor. His blonde hair was shorter, and while his face was placid, one reporter thought he looked as though he had aged 10 years during his 2 months in custody. He never glanced toward his family. The magistrate's clerk read the first-degree murder charge and asked, "How do you plead to this indictment, sir?" In a clear, strong voice, Markoff answered, "Not guilty." He then waived the formal reading of the other 6 indictments and pleaded not guilty to those as well. After the brief hearing, Markoff was ushered out of the room and taken back to the Nashua Street Jail, where he would be housed until his trial, which was anticipated for the summer of 2010. District Attorney Conley, a veteran of the criminal justice system, expressed no surprise at the defendant's ability to lead an apparent double life, stating, "The annals of criminal justice are filled with people who are able to compartmentalize their lives and fit in with society." The evidence against Markoff was mounting. The premeditated purchase of untraceable phones, the illegal acquisition of a firearm using fraudulent identification, the collection of victims' underwear as trophies, and the digital trail connecting him to both victims painted a picture of calculated predation. As he sat in his jail cell awaiting trial, the full scope of his crimes was becoming clear to investigators and prosecutors alike. Quick break. Ads keep the show running, but if you want to skip them, the ad-free version's on Patreon for just $3 a month. Links in the show notes.
You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times. Or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months. Or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan, #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Super Sale and get 40% off paints and stains September 19th through the 24th. With prices starting at $29.39, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your interior or exterior, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking through that. Let's get back to it. After his indictment, Philip Markoff was held at the Nashua Street Jail in Boston while awaiting a trial that was expected to begin in March 2011. During his incarceration, there were multiple indications of his deteriorating mental state. Shortly after his arrest in April 2009, Markoff was placed on suicide watch for approximately 3 weeks when officials found marks on his neck. Sources indicated these marks were apparently made by shoelaces. According to ABC News, he had attempted suicide at least twice. His first attempt reportedly occurred shortly after his fiancée, Megan McAllister, visited him in jail to break off their engagement. During that attempt, he tried to slash his wrists with a serrated spoon. In May 2009, a psychiatrist cleared Markov to be taken off suicide watch, and he was placed in a single cell within the general prison population. Sources also reported that Markov was being threatened by fellow inmates because he had won their commissary items while playing chess. On Sunday, August 15, 2010, Philip Markov, now 24 years old, committed suicide in his cell. The timing was significant. The previous day, Saturday, August 14th, would have been his first wedding anniversary with Megan McAllister. He was found unresponsive on the floor of his cell and was pronounced dead at 10:17 a.m. Officials stated that he was alone in his cell and that all evidence indicated he took his own life. The method of his suicide was elaborate and showed a clear use of his medical knowledge. He fashioned a primitive scalpel out of a pen and a sharp piece of metal. A separate law enforcement source told ABC News he was able to take a razor blade from one of the disposable razors that inmates are permitted to use. He used the instrument to inflict wounds on his neck, arms, wrists, and ankles. He managed to sever several veins in his carotid artery. He also slashed the femoral artery in his leg. To ensure his death and conceal the bleeding, he took several additional steps. He wrapped the wound on his leg in a garbage bag. He then tied clear plastic bags around his head and feet using gauze. A source noted that he put another garbage bag over his head and tied it tightly around his neck. The combination of air and blood loss contributed to his death. He was discovered when he did not come out for breakfast or for morning recreation. Guards went to check on him and found him dead. In his final moments, Markov created what one source called a ghoulish shrine to his former fiancée, Megan McAllister. He spread out photographs of her on the small table in his cell. Using his own blood, he scrawled her name, Megan, on the wall of his cell, along with the word pocket. He wrote the words above his doorway where he could see them, but where they would not be easily visible to corrections officers. At a news conference, District Attorney Daniel Conley confirmed the words written in blood but could not explain the meaning of pocket, stating, "We're still studying that." Markov's death immediately triggered a comprehensive investigation by the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, the Boston Police, and the Sheriff's Department. Surveillance tapes from the hall outside Markov's cell showed that he was alone from the time he turned his lights out at 1:59 a.m. until he was found unresponsive about 8 hours later. Although inmates are supposed to be checked every 30 minutes, Sheriff Andrea Cabral noted that his cell had last been searched in June as part of quarterly searches. She defended the jail's procedures, stating it had one of the lowest suicide rates in the country and that it was impossible to prevent contraband. City Councilor Stephen J. Murphy called for an independent investigation, which Sheriff Cabral dismissed as political grandstanding. Julissa Brisman's family issued a statement expressing that Markov's death had taken away their only opportunity to confront him at the long-awaited criminal prosecution. The high-profile nature of the case and Markov's death fueled continued criticism of Craigslist. In the months following, attorneys general from 17 states sent a letter to the company asking them to remove the adult services section. In response to this immense pressure, Craigslist blocked access to its adult services section on September 4, 2010, replacing the link with a black label showing the word censored. This followed a change made in May 2009 when the site had already renamed its erotic services category to adult services. The case was later dramatized in a made-for-television movie titled The Craigslist Killer, which aired on the Lifetime channel on January 3, 2011. The film starred Jake McDorman as Philip Markov and William Baldwin as the lead detective. A review of the movie noted that it offered no explanation or motive for Markov's behavior, with his character in the film stating, "I'm a straight-A medical student. I'm getting married in a month. I mean, would you guys care to explain to me why I would go around and shoot prostitutes in hotel rooms?" Philip Markov's death ended his story, but it did not end the pain he had caused. Tricia Leffler survived his attack and found the strength to identify him, helping ensure that justice could be pursued. Her courage in the face of trauma was instrumental in preventing further victims. Julissa Brisman was not afforded the same chance at survival. She was a young woman who had overcome addiction, found sobriety, and was working to rebuild her life with purpose, helping others struggling with the same demons she had conquered. Her transformation from party girl to someone dedicated to helping others represented the best of human resilience and redemption. She loved her tiny dog Coco more than all her boyfriends combined. She believed in the magic of New York City and the kindness of strangers who would jump onto subway tracks to retrieve a dropped iPod. She was working toward becoming a substance abuse counselor, turning her own painful experiences into a force for good in the world. Julissa's mother, Carmen, would never again hear her daughter's laughter or see her smile. Her friends would never receive another Facebook message or share another conversation. The future she was building, one dedicated to healing and helping others, was stolen from her and from all the people she might have helped. In the end, Philip Markoff took his own life, but he could not undo what he had done. The lives he shattered, the trust he violated, and the fear he spread through his calculated predation remained his true legacy. What should be remembered are not his crimes, but the humanity of those he targeted, women who deserved safety, dignity, and the chance to live their lives without becoming victims of someone else's darkness. Julissa Brisman was more than the masseuse. She was a daughter, a friend, a woman in recovery, and someone who wanted to spend her life helping others heal. That is how she should be remembered.
You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times, or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months, or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan, #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Super Sale and get 40% off paints and stains September 19th through the 24th. With prices starting at $29.39, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your interior or exterior, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times, or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months, or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan, #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown. You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times, or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months, or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan, #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown.